those that are curious out there. Once again, we're going to be going through my portfolio of nightmare drawings. Today's are a bit more graphic and gory than the last 5 I went through, and they explore realms of severe anxiety, depression, and grief. I don't know too much of these expressions or emotions often. I don't really show them. But when I do, it's usually in private time to myself. Even though that I am completely aware I'm not the only person that goes through extreme emotions like this, I can't help but privately express them to myself or just my wife. And I believe that these entities and deep sleep encounters are examples of what happens when you bottle these emotions up too much. So let's get started. But first, once again, I cannot stress this enough that these images are graphic enough to smack me in the face with an age restriction, despite only being ink art. So if this video disturbs you, just turn it off. Don't complain. Don't be one of those people that gotta slap the report button. Like, come on. Just don't be that. We're going to begin with anxiety. This grotesque-looking elephant-like entity is a good example of anxiety in its rawest form. The grotesque appearance, covered in various stitching and sagging, wrinkled skin, is a reflection on anxiety one fears in how they appear to the public. Notice the movement of the legs, it's in motion, because when I dreamt this thing up, it was chasing me through my darkened neighborhood street. And everywhere I turned, it was still right behind me, shuffling around and making an awful grunting sound that sounded like deep seething laughter. Also, it was speaking in tongues that I can only describe as German sounding in between these laughs. Now, I don't speak German, and I don't know any phrases in German, nor have I learned anything, but this is what I heard. Du Erstarben schneidet das Messer. Schreiber den der Toten an, which roughly translates to, a friend of mine who actually speaks fluent German, it translates to, you're going to die, sliced a knife and join the dead. Very, very strange. Let's talk about depression. Whether you're born into being depressed or you have severe depression just by traits, or you are ushered into depression due to unforeseen circumstances, there's no question in my mind that depression is one of the worst feelings that a person can go through. The times I've been the most depressed in my life, and I've had thoughts or even attempts to unalive myself, is like an existential crisis or the threat of the unknown. I can only really describe it as really sad music. And when that music plays inside your mind, this is a great example of bottling those feelings up and dealing with a psychological warfare within yourself. Your mind tells you to put a smile on for the world and try to see it blindly, but inside you feel like you're dying. And to cover up, you play a symphony of sadness for yourself to cope with the pain. I can't really explain it any better than that. Just look at the drawing and just stare at it. Grief, the feeling of loss. I get this feeling a lot more than ever now. And the nightmares always start as dreams before they descend into darker places. I vividly remember this dream. My childhood best friend was still alive, and well, we were hanging out together like we should always have been. Hanging out in a park that's local to us, with a small creek nearby. We were playing baseball, having a great time, until the sound of loud machinery interrupted us. And then this half-mechanical, half-organic, homunculus-like entity rises out of the creek babbling raspy gibberish and begins to chase us. My guess is the number one thing in my dream, especially when I dream about my friend who sadly passed away 4 years ago, only 20 years old, is the number one thing is I want to accept this fantasy as a reality, but reality comes out of nowhere and frightens me back towards it instead of letting me stay within this fantasy. That's the only way I could really describe the scenario, but this creature itself is just one of the most unbelievably disgusting and grotesque looking things I think my mind has ever conjured up, and that's saying a lot. Okay, I've frightened and maybe upset you enough, so let's end on a drawing that was done out of pure fun. You know the Elmo of Fire meme circulating the internet? Well, here's an extremely old meth head Elmo of Fire that I drew out of boredom one day. I censored the bottom because I was trying to draw old man's sagging chest, like a lot of loose skin, and instead it came out just looking like boobs, so I have to censor it now. That's also the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching.